We also see this just in her general psychology, right? So then one day I'm reading St. Thomas Aquinas on wounds, and he says, a thing can only be wounded when there's resistance to the thing causing the damage. Now, this is actually true. So if you take a knife, right, and you press it on your hand, but you don't create any resistance on your hand, it stings a little bit, but it doesn't penetrate. It's only when I create the resistance can the knife then penetrate, right? And so what this tells us is that in physical wounds are very much like psychological wounds and also spiritual wounds, that we only become wounded because there's resistance to the pain, there's resistance to the suffering. Our Lady never resisted the suffering. She fully embraced every single sacrifice, every single painful thing, and never once counted the personal cost. And that's another way of saying there was never any resistance to anything God ever asked of her. If you notice, what's happening is anytime she's asked, her immediate answer is yes to God. One point, there was this one demon was talking about how beautiful she was. And so I said to him, so basically when God saw how beautiful was, he gave himself to her, and he says, no, you have the order wrong. So whenever they flatly correct you, that's usually an indicator they're telling you something that's true. And so I said, then what was the right order? He said, when she saw how good he was, she couldn't help but give herself entirely to him. And the way the indicator for that is Our Lady did have a mystical life leading up to the time of the Annunciation. She did actually have, a mystical experiences from time to time during that phase. In fact, they say that Our Lady was confirmed in grace. She was at the 8th level of prayer prior to the Annunciation. And that confirmed in grace, or that preservation in grace, was in point in fact that God kept her from falling into sin. And then once she accepted the fiat, that is, she accepted what God was asking and gave the fiat, then at that moment she entered into a confirmation in grace, which means she couldn't sin from that point on. But it's at that moment that she gives herself entirely to the